In 1849, the state of California expressed interest in creating an educational system in which California students would have access to free, quality educational that was available to all. Under the California Master Plan for Higher Education, the three-tier higher education system, which included the University of California's California State Schools and community colleges, was formulated, and the first University of California was established in 1868. Specifically, UCSD was established in 1960 by Director of Scripps, Roger Revelle, with the intentions of starting a graduate school of science and engineering, but eventually became a school for undergraduates as well.
For a long time, Californians greatly supported public education, but that drastically changed during Reagan's term as governor of California from 1968 to 1975. He supported Proposition 13, which was passed in 1978. This proposition, among other things, put the state in charge of the revenue allocated to higher education like the UCs, rather than local governing bodies that better understood the needs of the schools in their respective communities.
All of it began the first time some of you who know better and are old enough to know better let young people think that they had the right to choose the laws they would obey as long as they were doing it in the name of social protest.
Equality in education was no longer a priority, and the state began to fund less and less money to the UCs even though the costs of maintaining the universities stayed the same. This led the UC regents and the office of the president to begin to privatize the institution, and they began to use fee increases to rid of the growing deficit. Such fee increases made it increasingly difficult for low-income students to attend these public universities.
So my name is Arcelia Gutierrez, currently a fourth year majoring in Spanish literature with a double in Latin American studies. Privatization is pretty much taking sectors that belong to the public area sectors and then turning them into private lucrative businesses. And that's what we've been seeing happen with education lately, with all of like the fee increases, defunding from the state, from the government, and also because of policy making within the university. So that's how we get a lot of privatization, not only within education, but you see it like in healthcare and a lot of other things, or even like pensions become private. On Friday, she said, you're all doing a really good job at selling our school, and there's a lot of buyers out there, you know? And that just kind of shows you like the mind frame of like administrators. They see it as a commodity, not like as a social type of like benefit, you know, for our society, and it's just like a product for them. So
in 2005, an agreement was made between former California Governor Schwarzenegger and the University of California, the California state system called the Higher Education Compact. This compact showcased the intentions of the legislature to shift the funding of public universities from government funds to a reliance on private research.
My name is Luis Martin Cabrera. I'm an associate professor here in the Department of Literature. I am also affiliated with Ethnic Studies and Critical Gender Studies, and I am also the vice president of the San Diego Faculty Association, which is a group of faculty that works against the full privatization. That the privatization of the university is the transfer of public resources into private hands to generate profits. But how is this affecting a public university? In different ways. One of them is like this process has like different legs. One of them is passing the cost of higher education into the students, right? Whereas before the state of California, and the taxpayers were supporting the system, right now more and more education is being conceived not as a right, but as a commodity that you have to pay for. But also, I think the process of privatization implies, financializing the institution. What that means is that the university's first concern is not only to provide education and educate well the students, of the state of California, but rather to generate money through profit-making centers.
The compact was masked as a necessity to ensure a quality education, but it instead brought a decrease in the quality of public education as the salaries of individual administrators rose while student and faculty resources.
We have several faculty that are retiring, and those positions are not being replaced, right? And they used to be replaced. So the number of students have increased, faculty are retiring, and we're not replacing them. There are also faculty who got offers from other institutions And it used to be the case that they could do a counteroffer. They don't do that anymore. They're actually invited to leave. We have seen that, especially with 2 colleagues recently. So the result is that there are, less of us and the same or more students. So the result is that I have to do twice as much, advising and mentoring. Especially if you are in a department that serves, historically underrepresented minorities or poor students that are first-generation college students, that requires a lot of mentoring and care. And I really want to do that job, but it's becoming increasingly difficult.
There is a projected $2.4 billion shortfall in the UC budget for 2015, and as the state does not plan on increasing funding, this shortfall will require a 16% fee increase every year to account for the differences. The regents and administration claim that they see no other solution to the deficit other than fee increases, but they do not consider cutting salaries of administrators or raising taxes on the rich to fund higher education. In 2007, the excess growth of the administration was estimated to cost $603 million a year, or the equivalent of the expenditure of 34,000.
So we're saying that revenue is staying steady within the university, but that costs are increasing. But if we look at the numbers, you'll see that there's a lot more administrators that are being hired to the university as opposed to faculty members or stuff. So it's turning into a corporate bureaucratic type of model. And of course, it's going to cost more money if you're turning it into that, So maybe the solution is to get away from that and turn it what it really was, which was a school where you want teachers and students, and maybe it
As
would
a
be more
result of these
sustainable that way.
measures, the nationwide total of student loan debt has increased by 511% since 1999, reaching $1 trillion last year in 2011. This makes it increasingly difficult for students to keep up with their education and their expenses.
As the price of higher education is increasing, especially in the UC system, all of you as students have to work more, more hours. Even if you have fellowships or Pell Grants, you still have to work multiple hours. You're taking on more debt, and I think your well-being is suffering. I see many students coming into this office with a lot of
UC graduates go on to positively contribute to their region's economies and societies, and every dollar California taxpayers invest in the UC generates at least $14 of economic output, showing that investment by the state in the UC positively contributes to the state's economy.
My name is Jorge Mariscal. I'm a professor of literature here at UCSD, and I'm also co-director of the Dimensions of Culture program at Marshall UCSD, as well as Berkeley and UCLA especially, are now looking for wealthier students. So that means they go out of state, they go abroad. So the increase in what's called high family income students, which means your family has to make more than $93,000 a year. That's going to increase 112% for the incoming class this fall. So you can see that the first generation students, low income students, those numbers are decreasing. High family income students is going way up, right? And that means a lot of foreign students, especially from China, but from Korea and other
Privatization of the
places.
university also has severe impacts on the demographics of the university. By increasing student fees, the UC turns away thousands of low-income students, who belong largely to racial minority groups. These low-income minority groups do not have access to the A through G classes necessary to be admitted to a UC, and therefore cannot access public institutions that are meant to provide education to all Californians. UCSD's location in upper-class La Jolla doesn't help the matter either, as it too turns away students who do not feel they fit in or can afford the amenities that come with living in such a wealthy area.
Well, La Jolla, even back then, this is the late 1950s, extremely exclusive, wealthy area, right? It's one of the wealthiest per capita areas in the country. And the fact that the campus was built here meant that it was going to be cut off from a real urban landscape, right? Because if you've been around here, there's really nothing, right, except wealthy houses and a freeway and malls. So over time, for the last 50 years, that has meant that working class communities of all colors have felt cut off and disconnected from this campus. I've met Latino parents who grew up in San Diego who tell me Well, when I was a kid, we used to drive by on the freeway, and my parents would say, well, you guys can't go there because that's a private school. In other words, the image of UCSD for those communities has always been that it's elitist, it's private, it's expensive, we can't go
Although the
there.
UC system has been crippled by privatization and fees continue to rise each year, it is important to continuously fight privatization and to reclaim our education. Since this is a public university, the students should be the administration and the region's priority, and thus should have a say in the development of the system. Thus, students have to work together to help create a consciousness in the student body and promote activism amongst each other as well.
Hi, my name is Kevin Carollo. I'm a senior Marshall College student, and I am a member of the Public Education Coalition. So, I think student activism and activism in general can be effective on two levels. One of them is on a symbolic level, and I think what's really important on a symbolic level is just to make the problem visible. I don't think people realize how extensive the problem of tuition increases has been. And activism is a good way to dramatize and show the rest of California and the rest of the United States what's going on in young people's lives and why it's important. The other way that activism helps make positive change is that it actually directly influences the way things are run. So
Politician Salvador Allende once expressed, "To be a student and not a revolutionary is a contradiction."